know what time it is. It is Beyond the Frets time, episode 17. Thanks for sticking it out with me. I don't know what's going on. But anyways, I'm super excited for my guest, Abigayle Kompst. She is a wonderful, incredible singer-songwriter, guitarist, musician person from Nashville. I really kind of don't know how I met her. I think I just found her online on Instagram or something, maybe some mutual friends. But I really have come to love her work, especially her latest EP, her first full-length EP, Vegas, came out in 2022. From her own bio, it says this: if Norah Jones, Joni Mitchell, and Phoebe Bridgers had a baby, that baby would be Abigayle Kompst. I love that so much. Those are some of my favorite artists, and you can really tell and hear those influences in her music, but she's really got her own special thing. I had a lot of fun talking to her about the craft of songwriting. While I, like to call myself a composer and arranger, I don't necessarily call myself a songwriter. That's kind of a different bag. So I really wanted to get inside of her head with that, in addition to, of course, simply meeting Abigayle and finding out who she is. She won multiple awards for her classical guitar playing and jazz singing, so she's really a Jill of all trades. And she got her chops recently at Belmont University, the School of Music, where she got a songwriting degree. Before we get into the nitty-gritty details, I hope you can please like, subscribe, share, rate, review, whatever you need to do to get Beyond the Frets out there. Really would mean a lot over here at this one-man shop. I think that's all I got for you, so listener, please sit down, grab an axe, and get abducted. This is Beyond the Frets.
She's kissing him in the rain, a scene that all lovers crave. It fell apart for the montage, but welcome to Beyond the Frets. We have Abigayle Kompst. So, yeah, I really wanted to talk to you because I just love your music so much. I can't even remember where I found you. That's, I guess, thanks to the internet. But yeah, it just has this kind of ineffable quality. And I've been listening to Vegas on repeat. And I just really want to figure out who you are and where you come from, both literally and musically. So if you don't mind giving us a brief overview of who are you?
Well, thank you. That's a huge compliment that you dig the music because you're a fabulous musician yourself. So
thank you.
But yeah, I grew up in Vegas since the age of 4, doing all kinds of musical theater and singing at church. And, my parents are both musicians, so there was just always music in the house. And I feel like when I got to college and I had to pick a major, music was the only thing that I knew how to do. But yeah, I've been in Nashville since I was 18, so about 4 years now. Figuring out the whole Nashville songwriter thing and being surrounded by other artists that inspire me and, playing shows. So yeah.
Well, and when did you when did you write your first song?
I think start to finish, I think I was always writing little jingles and singing them to my dogs when I was just little.
Yeah.
But I think 16 when I was hormonal and emotional and there were boy drama and all that. I think 16 was the first oh wow, I just wrote a complete song and that felt really great.
Yeah, and you kind of just followed that feeling ever since.
Yeah, it became just exercise and therapy for my mind, and yeah, couldn't live without it for that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, can't live without it. That's why we do this. And like that kind of reminded me of like my, college experience. Like I was doing music since I was 6, and I was just like, well, there's kind of nothing else I can do. So this is what I'm going to do, hell or high water.
Yeah.
Where did you go to school?
For high school, I went to Las Vegas Academy. It's like a performing arts school, and it's a classical guitar major, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah, random, but
at high school or?
Yeah, they had like
so
there was like theater and dance and jazz band and like this 32-piece classical guitar ensemble. So I was there for years doing that.
Wow. Okay, wait. So now I have to go back. So when did you start playing guitar?
6th grade.
Okay.
Again, that was like a school organized thing. Like technically, Nevada is number last in education, like across all measures of funding and, however they figured that out.
Yeah.
They had such like amazing arts programs. And the reason I play guitar is because that was like an elective.
Wow.
Place when I was like 12. So, yeah.
That's awesome. As a guitar educator, there's such a lack of access to guitarists in just public education. Like even myself, I'm a professional guitarist. Like the only thing I did with my guitar in school technically was like my very last semester of jazz band. That was like at 7 a.m. and it was, not fun. And I didn't show up half the time. And if you couldn't read music or do jazz, then like you had no access to like play guitar or learn guitar. I really wish that was part of a core curriculum just for everyone, because yeah, it's a bummer. But that's just a broader like music education thing. Like if it's not band or choir or like, orchestra, then you really have a harder path to like kind of, find yourself in a school setting. But obviously there's arts schools and magnet schools and charter schools that do kind of offer those settings. So that's awesome.
Yeah. So did you start playing in high school?
I played piano since I was 6. And then when I was like 11, I, got into Metallica and rock and Van Halen. I was like, I have to play guitar. Screw this piano thing. So I started guitar, and it was kind of autodidactic for a while. And then I had a couple teachers. Then, it got down to brass tacks, and I was like, I really want to go to music school. I want to go to Berkeley, etc. So I kind of, I got a guitar teacher that was really into like Brazilian and jazz. So that kind of set me on that whole path of becoming a jazz guitarist.
Awesome.
Yeah. So classical guitar. So I guess this can kind of segue into something I love about your playing and your musicianship and songwriting is your guitar playing. So, how do those skills, like how have your guitar playing skills and like that side of you, how does that kind of go into your songwriting process?
Well, I guess it started like when I was first writing, I would be like in a guitar lesson and be learning like new chord voicings or something that I was already practicing. And then just naturally, like either as a way of practicing or just since it was in my brain already, like I'd kind of move stuff around and see how I could write over it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that still remains true. But now I get to be a little more intentional of like, oh, this color of like playing fits with this vibe of song. And yeah, does that answer?
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And I like the way you said it, like color and vibe, because, we can get into the nitty gritty of this is a major 7 sharp 11 and this blah, blah, blah. You can do all the theory, and that of course is helpful to know and to kind of define like what that color actually is. So you can like recreate it or like put it in a new key or tell your musicians if you have a band. But it's also, I think, very important as an artist to kind of follow those more esoteric, like it's a vibe, it's a color, it's an attitude, it's a feeling, it's something that you can't quite pin down. That's very important to me, at least.
Absolutely.
And so, like, who are some of your influences? I guess early on, and how has that evolved now?
Early on, I was a big Ed Sheeran girl. Like,
Okay.
it's kind of me discovering that people write their own songs. There's a Irish singer by the name of Orla Gartland, and she would post YouTube videos that I watched religiously. Both gingers, Ed Sheeran and Orla. Just now putting this together. Seeing it in my head. Panic at the Disco, randomly. Like, love their wordiness and big vocabulary. Also, like, Vegas adjacent band. Like, their guitar player took from one of the teachers I took from back home. So.
Oh wow.
But and then also like vocal jazz, like Ella Fitzgerald, Billie Holiday.
Yeah. And like, were you learning those songs and kind of like explicitly analyzing and breaking them down, or were they just kind of more, well, I like this style of music, how can I maybe create my own thing that kind of is like that?
Yeah, I don't know if I was thinking about it that much early on. I'm sure that I ripped some chords from someone along the way. Like, I have to have done that. But I don't know. I wasn't like thinking about, oh, I want my music to sound like this artist, or I want to have a song that sounds like Ed Sheeran's A-Team. I just kind of wrote what I felt, and that was like a very special time in songwriting where like I had no education on how to write songs, and like it now, I mean, takes a skilled songwriter to like hear a song and then like replicate it in a new way. So I wasn't doing that back then, and like I find myself in co-writing sessions now where like that is the goal, to kind of create something along the lines of a prompt, if you will. Right. I was just loosey goosey writing whatever over the chords I knew at the time.
Yeah, I mean that's at the end of the day, music is us just like playing around, moving our fingers, singing what's in our head. I mean, there's so much improvisation involved, and also to a certain degree, like amateurism. I think that's really important. Just like, it's an open playground. Just figure out whatever, no matter how long it takes, or even if it's something you don't keep, if it's something that you maybe in a couple of days are like, I'm going to do something else. Like, it's that whole process of just evolving and, growing skin and shedding your skin and, that whole thing, metamorphosis.
Yes. Yeah.
So you got to college, you went to Belmont.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And were you like a songwriting major or?
Exactly. Yeah. Songwriting.
Okay. Wow.
And music business minor.
Okay. And so, well, it sounds like, when did you graduate?
In May of 2022.
Oh, okay. So last year. Okay, cool. So you just finished. So how was your college experience? And, where, I know you're in Nashville now, but like, how do you see yourself in the music business right now? Like, what's your trajectory as you see it?
Yeah. I mean, college was great and fun, and probably the best part is like it brought me to Nashville, and now I'm surrounded by super cool people who are doing amazing creative things. And I'd say like post graduation, I'm just figuring out with the rest of them, like, have a couple part-time jobs at the moment, and writing, like co-writing all the time, and kind of gearing up to like record another album.
Okay.
So yeah, you just kind of, I don't know, I'm making my money doing other things right now, and then like kind of supporting my music through that.
Yeah.
which is super fun. And I feel grateful to be able to balance that. And it is definitely like a grind at times. Like end of December, I was like going home for the holidays, and like the day before I left, I had like, I think I worked all 3 of my part-time jobs, and then I had a session, and like at 11 p.m. I could feel myself like getting ill because I just pushed it too hard. And yeah, that's definitely a New Year's resolution, is like rest and discretion, or discernment, I guess maybe is a better word. Did I hit on everything that you asked?
Yeah. I mean, well, I think it's so important to prioritize rest. And like, I'm a little older than you. I'm 29, and I just spent like all of my 20s just like grinding so hard, just like playing all the gigs, doing all the sessions, like teaching all the time. And I thought, I only kind of did that because that's what I saw in my peers and my mentors who were older than me. Like, oh yeah, you just grind forever. And if you're great, then you just have infinite energy and you can just do this forever. And then I just realized like, this is definitely not sustainable in any way. So the older I've gotten, the more I'm just like, yeah, actually last fall, like this past fall was the first time in my whole life I've actually in my calendar scheduled days off, where I'm like, all right, I'm not doing any work, because I can easily work 7 days a week, and I could be working 24/7 and there wouldn't be enough hours in the day to do what I need to do. So it's like, well, if that's the case, then I need to just carve out time and make that a priority, whether it's rest or just, watching Netflix or chilling with my cats or my girlfriend or like whatever. And oddly enough, because when I was younger, I'd be like, oh my gosh, like there's no way I could do that. Like I've got to be grinding all the time. But now the more time I take off, the more rested and the more, just mentally healthy and positive I am to get the work that needs to done. So in some ways I'm more productive.
Yeah, that is great advice. And every musician with a grind set is what we throw around. Is like, what is your grind set? How are you? When are you resting? When are you grinding? I don't know.
Right. Well, yeah, that's one of the things. I mean, I don't know about your college experience, but in my college experience, like no one really talked about just like the reality of like doing this your whole life. Cause like I saw my bubble was like, I've been in college, and then after college, I'm just going to like tour the world and like do all this cool stuff. And like, I wasn't thinking about what happens in my 30s and 40s and 50s. And I didn't think about the reality of like, if I want to be a professional musician my whole life, like it has to be, this is a kind of an old and trite metaphor, but like it's a marathon, not a race, not a sprint rather. So it's like you have to pace yourself if you want to like do this for the long run. And that's what I learned the hard way, because I burned out so many times. I mean, I can't tell you the amount of times I wanted to quit music, just full stop, because I was just so tired and just like completely unfulfilled, artistically and financially. But it comes around.
And it's sweet for a moment. You think you want to know it. Throwing rocks at your window, love, you can't get enough of that kind. So you're stepping out into the game, and you think somehow it's gonna change. And maybe it's true, or it's a story they tell, but let's rewrite it all. I blame the TV for the pressure it gave you to love somebody. I blame the TV for the picture it gave you, for it looks like to be happy. What do you look like? Happy. Now you're kissing him just to break the lonely spell you've come to hate. But he's not a hero or savior, only you can save you this time.
So one of the things I wanted to ask you about, you wrote 100 plus songs last year.
I did.
Tell me about that goal, and tell me about I guess like the practical elements of that. Like, was it difficult? Like, how often did you write? Was it like, all right, I need to have 10 each month? Like, how did that go?
Yeah. I mean, I love goals. I love school. And I think that's why I love little benchmarks and due dates. So I had like a minimum, like write 8. I think the number is like 8.3 songs a month, but I just shot for like 8 or 9, and then made sure I was like meeting that each month. And then by March, it was like I was already writing with a lot of different people, and we would just kind of like schedule the next one. So it wasn't that much work to like keep going. It's like by November, I think I was already pretty close to 100. And yeah, it was just, I mean, a lot of co-writing. I couldn't write, I don't think I would want to write 100 songs by myself. Like part of the wonderful thing about this project was getting to touch base with so many different friends and writers. Because I just had these set appointments of like, we're going to spend 2 or 3 hours in a room together writing a song, but also like, how's your life? What are you up to?
Yeah.
And that leads to like either more writes or, hey, let's put a show together and play at the Basement in Nashville. Like, and one of my favorite things I heard in college was like, don't wait for anyone to give you the job title. So if you want to be a professional songwriter, like schedule 3 or 4 co-writes for yourself a week. And now some professionals do more. They do like twice a day, but I just felt like a songwriter during that time. And I was writing great songs and I was writing really bad songs. And I feel more comfortable with that after that project last year of writing 100 songs, because they can't all be good.
No. And although I'm sure, knowing your music, I'm sure they were all pretty awesome. But like, one thing I heard I got my master's the last couple of years, and the head of the jazz program is an amazing composer, and I took composition lessons with him for a year. And one thing he kind of said often was like, we're all just kind of writing the same song over and over and over our whole life. So like whether this is something you keep or whether it's something you take apart and use little bits of, or whether you do use it as its entirety, like it all just kind of feeds into who you are. So like it's almost like the specific song or the specific thing you write doesn't matter, because it's all just going to like build this foundation that just grows your whole life. And that really kind of helped me, because me as a composer and writer, I'm more like, I'm not super disciplined, and I actually kind of would like to implement what you did and kind of give myself a goal, because I just kind of wait for inspiration to strike. But that's successful in that I like what happens when I write, but it's so few and far between that I just need to kind of get down to brass tacks and, actually make it an exercise or, part of the craft. So I'm definitely interested in taking a cue from what you did last year.
Well, let me know if you need any inside tips. I don't know what I would say, but I like a hard deadline, because this is like really the only like New Year's resolution that I think I've kept since I can remember, and it was because of like a solid number.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
But I think this year I'm allowing myself to write 50 songs, but then make my album the best it can be and like play more shows. So I think 100 was a lot for someone. I mean, like you teach and you're composing stuff. Like I feel like that takes a lot more time than it would to write the lyrics and melody for a song. So 100, like I wouldn't advise. Keep your rest days, please.
Yeah, right. Don't worry. I will. Yeah, I don't know what my number is, or even because I mean, I guess you brought up the point. I'm in a different. Well, to me, like writing lyrics and like writing a song, like that would be much harder for me. So, and I would love to challenge myself to just write. I've written one song with lyrics, and like a song. It's pretty abnormal as far as the chords and the form, but it is like a song. And I'm so like not embarrassed, but it's like so not my thing that I like don't want to share it, but I also think it's cool. So like I would like to keep doing that. So yeah, I don't know. Writing is definitely one of those things I really love, but I wanted to ask you, and this might be too like, heady, but like, what is a song? Like, how do you know you went from 0 songs to 1 song? Like, how do you know, how do you define, it's not a clinical medical definition, but like, what's Abigail's definition of a song being completed?
Well, in a very like non-interesting answer, like structure. I mean, if you have, I think that the biggest question at the end of a write is like, do we need a bridge? Like, do you want to write a bridge? And the answer today is usually no, because everyone wants like really short, concise.
Yeah, I've heard that. Yeah, I've heard that lately. It's interesting.
It's a controversial topic in the songwriting community. I don't know. But yeah, I guess once you determine if you need a bridge or not, and if you do, you write the bridge. It's kind of like, all right, this is the song is complete. But in a more like, I mean, there's definitely like when I'm writing with another artist, that ball is kind of in their court of like, when are you fully happy with this? Like a song can be complete and then maybe verse 2 doesn't totally align with like the way that they would say what we said. So I just think like once that I'm rubbing my hands together trying to think of the word, like any dissonance and like who you are and what you want to say and like what we actually ended up saying. Once all of that is resolved, I think you have on your hands, and that can mean so many things to so many people. Like,
right.
There are so many great songs that like don't follow the same structure or rules or written in the same like tone, I guess.
Yeah. Well, you brought up something I like dissonance and resolution. I'm sure you're talking not only like musically, but like thematically and like as far as the story. So I guess how do you approach? Because this is something I don't know anything about. Like how do you approach like writing, like just writing lyrics and like writing a story and knowing and like having an idea of what the overall feeling or tone or story is, and and completing it in 3 verses and 3 choruses.
Yeah, I mean that's the big mystery. Sometimes I like just completely like float off into space, and then I come back and like there's a song, and I'm like, well, I definitely didn't do that. So there's kind of like that element of it. But I honestly like, I don't know. I really don't. I think that's why like I've fallen in love with co-writing. Like as someone who used to only write by themselves, like just having another person there to like make sure you're feeling the same things and fighting for the same like message in a song, like that is really important. And you can do that by yourself for sure, but it definitely like I think takes longer, and it doesn't have that like vetting process that having another writer in the room has. Like,
yeah, you get the validation.
Yeah, almost immediately. And I remember like I do have a goal to write if more by myself this year, because I feel like I haven't done that in so long, and that's kind of where I fell in love with songwriting in the first place. But that would take me like multiple sessions of I'm going to write this verse and chorus and then come back to it and then come back to it again, because you're just not like removed enough from it while you're writing it. Whereas like when there's another person in the room, like all of those things that you listed off, like the tone and the dissonance, like you're sorting through that and you're like editing as you go, because you have like that like sounding board.
Right. Yeah. Another person with a totally different, sense of reality and space and feeling and emotion and experiences.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like the best and awesome filter. I've never actually really wrote with other people. So I should do that more. Although I am in a band and we have like a writing retreat in 2 weeks. So I'm excited to maybe take some of the things that you have mentioned and, throw it at them.
I mean, I imagine it's no different than like when you're playing a solo in like a jazz combo, like that same.
That's true.
Feedback from like the other players, like it's the same energy and same part of your brain, I think.
Yeah, that's a super, super good point. I mean, something I tell my students all the time is like, what's the difference between improvisation and composition?
Writing it down.
Yeah. Time, like the ability to edit and go back. There's really not, like I said, all the way back to Bach to, Lizzo, like we're all at the end of the day just kind of messing around and improvising until we find something cool. And then, the act of writing it down, not maybe literally, but recording or whatever, that kind of sets the difference between improvisation and composition. So they're so integral to me. And that's, I live in the improvised space. Like I love making stuff up on the spot, more or less. So I definitely, I know I can use more of that side of my brain and be deliberate about composing and writing with other people, because I just like, there's nothing more special to me than like having written something and giving it to musicians and just standing there and hearing it back. And, even if it's not exactly what I wanted, or I know there's tweaks, like it's just a very magical feeling. And actually it kind of gets to something you said, like you said earlier, like you go off into space and then you come back and then you're like, well, I didn't do that. And I completely agree. This is maybe like woo woo, but like personally, I think like all art and music is like, it's just like in the universe already. Right. And like on some days I'm just able to like tap into that space and just like extract it and say, well, this isn't mine, but damn, I was lucky enough to like kind of grab it and like, put it in a way that I can send it back out into the universe.
Right. And I mean, that relates to, showing up to write. If you show up 50 times this year to like create and compose, like that's just 50 more chances than to like catch that. I mean, you've heard of like I think it's a Greek thing, but like the genius in the walls, like a genius isn't a person. It's just this like kind of floating, like it's like an explanation is like, you're not responsible for the art you create. You're just responsible for showing up. And
wow.
Song is bad. It's just because your genius was taking the day off and like, but you were there. I had a pen in my hand and I was ready to write. And
it almost takes off such a weight.
Absolutely. I mean, we see like creatives that can't handle that reality. Like they're so attached to their creations, and that's like I mean, it's devastating what can happen. So yeah, it takes the weight off to be like, I'm not responsible for how good the song is. I'm just gonna show up and like use what I have to try to make something cool.
Yeah, you're the scribe at that point.
Yeah, we're scribes.
Scribes. Not scrubs, scribes. That's awesome. I love that. I'm going to look into that. The Greeks definitely, they did not mess around with thinking about art and how it related to, like they had different, I can't remember this from my music history class that I, immediately forgot everything. But they had, just like how art, like music, like the arts, like literally affected the body. Like they had this whole thing about it. I can't remember what it was, but they had some really interesting thoughts on that. And that kind of like went away. It'd be cool to get into that again.
Yeah.
Tell us about Vegas, your EP.
Oh yeah. I have an EP now. It's my first one ever. 4 songs. First track is Vegas. It's a true story. I mean, I brought my boyfriend back to Vegas to meet the family. And you tell people you're from Vegas and they're like, whoa, like that's crazy. And do you gamble or like, are your parents dealers? And I'm like, yes, absolutely. So,
right.
My mom was in Menopause the Musical at the time. So there's definitely some truth to like that's weird. It was weird. But that song is just about like, I felt just such a deep sense of pride to be showing the person I love around the city that I love, that it's like, I don't know, there's a lot more beauty there than I think people give it credit for. Like Red Rock Canyon is just some of the best hiking I've ever done. And like the whole city is in a valley. So everywhere you look, there's just like a big mountain in the distance.
Yeah.
That's my only gripe with Nashville is like, the hills are so rolling that like you don't feel like you're surrounded by mountains. And I miss that about like the western mountains. But yeah,
and there's like a lot of a lot of professional climbers that live in Vegas, right?
That makes sense.
Yeah,
I never ran into them, probably because they were like climbing out.
Right. They're on the I can't even think of the Bellagio or whatever.
Yes, scaling.
Yeah.
Great. So yeah. And the next track is We Found Heaven. That's kind of like a little raunchy, little sassy love song, just about like finding heaven in all places because you're with the person you love.
Mm-hmm.
And then Making All This Up is next, which is kind of like an indie pop.
I love that one.
Thank you. And that's about making things up it's like the good and bad of, I guess, being a creative person. Like we're all creative. Every human is creative in their like thoughts of like, you dream something up, you dream of a life with someone, and that's wonderful and a beautiful use of your creative brain. But then I can also find myself making like not real situations, whether it's like jealousy or just kind of those like intrusive thoughts in relationship of like, you're making things up. So that's making all this up. And then I Blame the TV. I wrote that with my friend Ashley Abink over Zoom during the pandemic.
Wow.
And that's one of those moments where like I have the notebook page where like the lyrics were written down and I have no idea like what I watched or what I was going through or like who I was talking to when like the concept just like we had a write scheduled, and I was like, what are we going to write about? Oh, here's this random piece of whatever. But it ended up being like, that's one of my favorite songs to play out. And I think it resonates with a lot of people, just like kind of in this media age that we live in, and like acknowledging the pressure and the pictures that media gives us, and like how we can kind of not like make our own judgments and not let that totally set what our dreams and what our love looks like. So, yeah.
Love that. That's awesome. And so, in one of my last questions, with these songs, what was the process like bringing it to a band and recording? And then have you played this stuff out? Like, did you do a release show?
I didn't do a release show, but I think I'll want to do that next time around, because I don't know. Again, I was just like busy and didn't have time to plan that. But I do play out the songs with the band. We have another show January 26th in Nashville at the Cobra.
Cool.
So that'll be like songs from the EP and then like new songs for the next project. But I'm so lucky to play with the people that I get to play with. They're just brilliant. And I'm always astonished. Like, I think I always say like, oh my gosh, you make my songs sound like real songs. Like this is so beyond what my guitar and vocals like can do. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, how can people find you, and anything on tap for the new year? Well, I know you mentioned that show on the 26th. I'll try to get this out before then. Anything else?
I'm playing some road shows. I think like out in LA. I don't have dates officially set for that, but I'll be around. Instagram's a good place. It's just my name. Trying to be better at posting on Facebook, but that's a New Year's resolution. And I launched a Patreon just literally yesterday.
Awesome.
Well, I'm hoping to get some people on there to share creative process and like new demos and stuff. So
awesome. Definitely. I'll link all that stuff in the show notes. Make sure everyone finds their way to you.
Thank you so much, Zach. This has been fabulous, and
yeah,
be like talking person face to face, and
yes,
not over email. But
it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for spending the time on Beyond the Frets, and sharing some insight into your artistry.
Thank you so much.
What a fabulous conversation with Abigayle. I really think she has a maturity that goes well beyond her age in the way she speaks, the way she plays, the way she writes and composes, all of that. I really look forward to seeing where her career goes. I think she has a lot of amazing things ahead of her. So I hope you enjoy and check out her Vegas EP. I've been playing a couple tracks from that, including I Blame the TV and Making All This Up. I'll put the links to that in the show notes. Hope you dug this episode of Beyond the Frets. I look forward to putting out some more content this summer. Keep in touch. You can email me anytime at beyondthefretspodcast@gmail.com or find me on Facebook. I'm taking a hiatus from Instagram, so Facebook's probably the best place to find me. Well, dear listener, thanks for hanging with me, and I hope you have a great start to your summer.